Hello, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Opportunity at Work's webinar today, focused on our Government as Employer Playbook. I'm Beth Wiles. I'm a member of our member experience team, and I'll be sharing some background and introductory information for today's session before turning it to two of my Opportunity at Work colleagues to provide more detail on the playbook and also facilitate discussion with our outside speakers. We're actually going to start our session today with a quick poll. We're keen to get a little bit of background information, understand you, your organization a little bit more. As you're completing that, I want to give you a sense as to what we will be covering over the course of our webinar today. So you can see the agenda on the slide in front of you. We'll focus most of our time on items 2 through 5. So we're going to start with an overview of the playbook, move into conversation with our guest speakers. We're also going to have some dedicated time for audience Q&A, and then give some insights, tips, guidance on applying the playbook at your organization. A couple of just tips on using Zoom. So if you want to leverage some of the accessibility features, you should have some information coming through on chat, but you can also use the CC button to turn live captions on or off. You can also choose to activate a live transcript option for today's session. You'll find that under the More button. And then in particular, I wanted to call your attention to the Q&A button that you should see on your Zoom toolbar. We'll be, as I mentioned, having some dedicated time for Q&A in today's session. So you can use that button at any point over our time today to submit a question for the webinar. I also wanted to thank everyone who joined today's session for your interest in the STARS Public Sector Hub and for being part of a growing community focused on accelerating skills-based talent practices and opening pathways to economic mobility for STARS across the public sector. I imagine many individuals who are joining us today are familiar with the Hub already, but if you are newer or if you could use a refresher, you can use the QR code on the left-hand side of the screen to access the Hub. And then just as a reminder, as a member, you have access to the resources that you see outlined on the right-hand side of the page, some information around analytics and insights, narrative design, research and resources, and of course, the opportunity to continue to build community with your like-minded peers focused on accelerating skills-based talent practices and opening up opportunities for STARS. Speaking of our STARS Public Sector Hub, I want to introduce the individuals who will be leading the bulk of our conversation today. So have two of my colleagues here, Erica Loken and Henry Bartholomew, who are both part of our STARS Public Sector Hub team. And then our special guests and speakers today, Xiong and Shelly Stahara. And with having introduced everyone, I'm actually going to turn it over to Henry to start providing us a little bit more background on the playbook.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. Great to see everybody today. I'm looking at like the attendees and I see a bunch of familiar faces in the public sector. So super excited to see some friends attending the webinar today. I think we can go to the next slide here. Okay, perfect. So as you know, title of the webinar, Government as Employer Playbook. What are we doing with it? Why is it here? I think a lot of it came from you all. So we did some voice of the customer work and we've done a cohort over the past year. And what we heard from states, really from when we launched the STARS Public Sector Hub in May 2024 up until now, is like, we're really excited about skills-based hiring. This is very exciting work. How do we do it? And so part of the goal here was to design a playbook that actually had some practical next steps. We know like every state government, every city government, every federal agency operates a little bit differently. But we felt like having a pretty large amount of information that you can kind of pick and choose from would be a valuable resource. And so I hope that that's how it turns out for you all. We really appreciate the feedback. And the goal here is, I think what we've found in the public sector is there's a lot of change that happens with executive action, whether it's an executive order or legislation that's passed. But getting that change to be sustained over time is always the challenge. It's like, great, you've got, the executive function, people are excited about it, but then turning that into lasting change in hiring practices, turning into lasting change in how you think about writing job descriptions, that takes time. And sometimes what happens is there's so much excitement around the executive order or legislation that's passed, and then you go into the implementation phase and there loses some of the steam behind it. So the goal here is to give you all a resource to help support that, and super excited to have Mei Xiong and Shelly Stahara, apologies, on with us because they helped inform the development of the playbook as well. Erica's going to dive a bit deeper, but I will call out one section here because we have some folks on who are going to talk about it a bit. But the crafting your vision piece of the playbook stuck out to me as somebody who's done a lot of work with public sector agencies. It sounds very general, but I think it provides a great framework for how you bring your leadership on board, get them bought into like what you're doing, and also kind of frame the boundaries for the work going forward. So that's my one short plug, but I will hand it off to Erica, who's going to dig in a little bit deeper on how it's all oriented. And looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Henry. Yeah, so the playbook is a practical, action-oriented resource that's designed to help public sector leaders like yourselves adopt and scale skills-based talent practices. The goal is really to reimagine government as a model employer that hires for skills instead of degrees. The playbook addresses the challenge that traditional hiring prioritizing degrees over demonstrated skills really can limit your talent pipeline. Um, and by focusing on skills, you open up access to a broader, more diverse talent pool, which includes stars. This resource is really designed for the champions, the implementers, and the doers across all levels of government. It's not really a one-size-fits-all solution, and it's meant to be flexible and adaptable and meant to be tailored to your specific department, agency, community. The playbook is designed to be anchored across the talent lifecycle, ensuring that skills-based talent practices are applied consistently from workforce planning all the way through retention and development. And the playbook should really function as a roadmap, and is structured sequentially, but is really designed so that you can skip around and revisit sections as they are most applicable. So we have 8 sections ranging from setting the scene, which provides the context and explains who stars are, to developing a work plan, to measuring progress and adapting. The playbook really will provide you with the ability to clarify your starting point using an archetype, which is weaved throughout the entirety of the playbook. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. There are tools, templates, and examples to apply practices in real contexts, such as drafting job descriptions and engaging stakeholders. And then we have also built in across the entirety of the playbook change management tips and stakeholder strategies to help you build buy-in and overcome any resistance you might experience. Thank you, Beth. So I want to highlight 2 key sections of the playbook, both of which we see as foundational. So our first key section, highlighted on the left here, is identifying your starting point. This section provides the basis for the customized experience within the entirety of the playbook. Transformation really starts by understanding your current position and organizational readiness. And so this section is really anchored in helping you identify your starting point specific to your situation. It centers on 5 archetypes: explorer, activator, ally, builder, and connector, which reflect different levels of authority, engagement, and organizational readiness. You can identify or take a short quiz to determine which archetype best fits your role. That's embedded into the playbook. And the archetypes are really informed by 2 dimensions: organizational context, like policy commitment and leadership engagement, and then individual context, like authority and mindset. Once you know your archetype, the playbook really offers tailored tips and guidance at the end of every single section for each of the archetypes to make it easier to move from concept to action. One thing I really want to note here, though, is that the archetypes are not meant to be set in stone. They are meant to change as your situation changes, as you progress through implementing skills-based talent practices at different points. Your archetype might change, and so you can really go back, retake it, and then look at the different tips for your like new archetype that you are now positioned in. And then the next key section I want to highlight is developing a work plan. This section really provides the operational blueprint to turn your strategy and vision into coordinated and measurable progress. The playbook breaks implementation into work streams, which are sequenced across 5 strategic phases using a iterative do, learn, do approach. And the sequenced implementation starts with analyzing and identifying and then ends with scaling. And so you may already have started some of these, maybe started in one of these sequenced implementation efforts. And so you can jump in where it makes sense. And then developing a work plan will help you identify roles, clarify timelines and deliverables, and really reduce ambiguity. It will also help you build leadership confidence and execution, really no matter what stage of skills-based implementation you're at. And then finally, it ensures your efforts remain aligned with your vision, your objectives, and your key results. And with that, I will hand it over to Henry for our panel discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. So as noted, there's a lot of information in the playbook. And so I want to just emphasize, like, you should use it to whatever degree it's helpful for you. There's a quiz at the beginning of it as well, which we'll share a bit later, but I don't want to delay anymore. I'd love to move to our speakers. And so I'm going to give them a bit of the fire for their own intros, but Xiong and Shelly Stahara, super thrilled to have you both here. To start out, and I think we can pull down the slide actually, or maybe I'm still seeing the slide. May, would you mind introducing yourself and share a little bit about your organization in Hennepin County and why you found skills-based practices to be a part of your work?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. As Henry said, my name is May Xiong. I'm the Chief Workforce Development Officer here with Hennepin County in Minnesota. We have close to about 9,800 employees in Hennepin County and a little bit over, close to a little over 1 million or so residents. We identified back in 2013, we really started looking at our own workforce needs. And so in order for us to even do that, we conducted a workforce analysis and really identified 3 core areas where we needed more intentionality and support in. And those core areas were really around like this desire to have a stronger talent pipeline. We also identified that there were some anticipated vacancies upcoming that was due to retirements, and we needed to make sure that we had proper planning in place. And then we also, with the support of our board, prioritize our work on reducing disparities in our community. And so because of that, skills-based practices were a key part of our workforce strategy to address not only the current, but also the future needs of our workforce, making sure that our workforce was also representative of our community. It allowed us the opportunity to engage differently in the workforce ecosystem, creating opportunities for residents, while also ensuring that we were creating pipeline and opportunity for residents to be part of our workforce and part of the county system.
That's great. Also, just a spoiler alert, I'm from Minneapolis originally. I live in San Francisco, so I'm selfishly very excited to hear from Hennepin County. But that being said, I also love the mountains in Colorado. So Shelly, would you mind introducing yourself and share a little bit more about the state of Colorado and why skills-based practices has been an important piece of your work there?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Shelly Stahara. I'm State of Colorado's skills-based hiring HR consultant. Been working in this role for about 3 years now, getting the implementation of the skills-based framework and practices up and going. The initial concept in Colorado came around, I believe, 2017 or so, but became a full force push in 2022. So some plans had been made before then, but it was taking us a while to get off the ground. We recognized that we have a lot of stars in the state and a lot of need for them to come to work for us at the state. We began exploring how can we get this started? Where do we start? Another thing, in addition to everything that May said, thank you, May, for all of that, because we have all of that going on here in the state as in Colorado as well. But we've noticed that there are fewer high school graduates in Colorado going on to college, or at least there is a delay, a longer delay in when they will start pursuing further education. So we recognize that those are hands and minds that we can put to work. We need them. They are bright. They are the future. We want them here. And not just those recent high school graduates. I don't mean to make it sound like that at all. We've got people obviously in the state who are nearing retirement and maybe would like to come on board at the state and do a stint before they decide to leave the workforce. So we're interested in all of those people. We want representation that looks like our population as well. And we believe that this is absolutely the way to get there.
Well, I've worked with Shelly directly in the state of Colorado and can say I know it's a lot of work, but it's really valuable. And same for May and Hennepin County. I'm curious, speak as it's a good segue to the next thing. Like, why do you think a playbook is valuable? And I will say, firstly, like, thank you for providing input and ensuring that actually what we were building was something that reflected some of the needs of the public sector. But what elements of it are most exciting to you both? And I'll pass it back to May. We'll just kind of alternate that way.
Yeah, Henry, that's a great question. First of all, a playbook really does ensure that you push through those challenges and barriers. So this work not only presents challenges and barriers internally and externally, but also just opportunities along the way. And a playbook allows others who are interested in this work to continue to work through them. It's, when Hennepin County, when we started doing this work, it was difficult. Not difficult in the sense of getting leadership buy-in. That was a core piece of the conversation, right? Those archetypes are super important. But it's also how do you operationalize this work? And so the playbook really allows you to be intentional and thoughtful in that process. For us, by having the opportunity to really just even inform the playbook, it also just validated the work that is there, validated the work that we're doing. It also was really important for us to really look at the structure of the pathways and structure of the work that we do. So, having leadership buying into our hiring managers, to our folks who are managing individuals in the day-to-day operations, it really kind of gave us an opportunity to kind of be transparent along the way and to really prioritize this as a strategy that would not only build upon our employees, but also to add on to our employees from a skill development. It also created an opportunity for us to really look at our own advancement of our current employees. So that was important for us. So it's a little bit of both and. So for me, like a playbook was really an opportunity for us to just kind of work through all those challenges. And it's easy to kind of pull back when it gets difficult. But having a playbook really helps us kind of navigate the way.
Thanks, May. Shelly, what's your perspective on it?
I love that, May. This playbook is so exciting to me. Not only just as May was saying, that having worked through the process for the past few years, it is validating. It is representative of the work that has to be done to mobilize and navigate through the process to get this up and running in your organization. One of the things that really stood out to me as this was forming were the archetypes. It is to me, it's so valuable to understand your role and identify where you personally are at in this journey. So not just where your organization is, but what about you within your organization? And once you've identified that with the quiz, then figure out, well, what can I do? Or how can I help? How can I, be a part of making this happen? And what Erica was saying earlier about it's a fluid model. So you're seeing yourself in these different roles. Um, and I looked at them in the first place and I thought, before I even read what they were, I'm just looking at the titles and I'm like, oh, I'm, this or that. Well, no, I was much different than I thought I was once I took the quiz. Um, but I move throughout those archetypes depending
Mm.
on what stage we are. Am I a builder? Am I a connector? It changes depending on where we're at in a stage in the process. So I would encourage everyone to, start with yourself. Look at
Yeah.
that and see, who am I in terms of rolling out this enormous process, and how can I help get that started? Beyond that, I think I just love that the playbook meets you where you're at.
Mm.
Um, to May's point, it gets a little rough sometimes. You take a step back, go, okay, where were we? We were doing this. Okay, we're going to keep doing this. And sometimes, obviously, identifying what doesn't work is helpful as much as identifying what does work.
Yeah.
In terms of the state of Colorado, we are decentralized. So aligning our stakeholders, um, being very transparent, getting buy-in, focus groups, pilots of the various first steps in rolling out. Um, the other key piece that I would really recommend and hone in on is the developing your narrative. That was integral for us. And your narrative, we discovered as we were going along, um, the narrative has different audiences. So you need to tailor your
Yeah.
narrative depending on who is your audience, right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking with internal leadership, hiring managers, human resources, or if you're connecting with your workforce centers, um, post-secondary education providers, institutes of higher education, whoever it is, um, your narrative needs to change. And then through some of our workshops and through um, the segments that we did directly with you, Henry, and everyone at Opportunity at Work, well, lo and behold, we need a narrative
Mm.
for the candidates, for the
Uh-huh.
applicants. You all are, you all are doing that at Opportunity at Work, but we need to do that too as an employer. So it's been a constant process of discovery, and the playbook really helps lay it out as you're working on different pieces to bring it back together and keep it moving forward even when you're moving backward a little bit, still keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like you can move through the different archetypes at different points in your journey
Okay.
of trying to implement change. And I'm going to stick with you for a second, Shelly, because I think what you're talking about, like you can do a lot with the playbook, but there's also other things that you all have done in partnership with Opportunity to Work as part of the Transformers in the public sector cohort. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that. I also just want to emphasize, because I'm feeling lots of gratitude coming from you, Shelly, which is great. And we should put you on the stage to promote the playbook every time. But we can't do any of this without input from the public sector. So all of this stuff has been developed because we've had partnerships with people like May and Shelley in the public sector. So it's informed. Hopefully, it reads like something that is valuable or at least has been read by other public sector leaders because ultimately if it's not meeting the audience that we're trying to reach, then it's not that valuable. So I just say that because I think I appreciate all the kind words, but I also know that it's a two-way street. So I'm curious from your lens, Shelly, in Colorado, like what with the work of the cohort, are there any things you'd like to call out there that were particularly helpful that maybe relate to the playbook, or they could be operating independent of that too?
Yes, yes, yes. And I am very grateful to all of you at Opportunity at Work for bringing us together and helping us collaborate. I think being part of the cohort, getting to meet with other states and discovering that we have so much common ground and we're all at different stages. Special call outs to Minnesota, May, friends there, the people in Louisiana and
Mm,
Arizona in particular are popping into my head right now as being really amazing partners to help us in our journey. And we help them as well, figuring out, well, if you're decentralized and you can't really dictate a lot of things to independent agencies, how do you get things done through them? And the way that you do that is to um, create partnerships and buy-in and engage them in the building of various transformative processes, procedures, templates, tools. You don't just throw it at them and say, here you
right.
go. We're going to do skills-based hiring. No, engage them from the beginning. Um, and really, what I said about the playbook, meeting you where you're at, maybe you've done some things, maybe it hasn't been in the order that we did it in Colorado. Um, I love the playbook because it really lays it out much the way it worked for us. Um, so I thank you for including that in the
Oh
playbook
yeah, of
and
course.
showcasing, yeah, some of our successes. But a lot of a lot of that success came from ideas and really inspiration coming from working with other states
Yeah,
in the cohort who, whether it's moral support or just a little, oh, yeah, that's brilliant. We're gonna take that back and try to incorporate that. Um, Sometimes it could be as simple as an acronym or a phrase, or it could be you know, a different ideology of how you're approaching people. And I myself take a very consultative approach with the agencies in helping them to understand um, why it's important and how we can get there with their partnership. That I mean, we can build it, but if they don't come, it's all for naught. So
yeah,
really letting them know constantly reminding what's in it for all of us. It's that building that workforce of the future, um, making sure that we have planned ahead and our workforce is reflective of what we need going forward. Um, the cohort just so helpful. I think also reaching out to those core cohort members outside of official meetings and
hmm
gatherings.
hmm
Um, like, could you explain a little bit more about what you were talking about when we
yeah,
met, you know, 3 weeks ago,
yeah,
whatever it was? And I've had the opportunity to get on calls with other states who are trying to get up and running, and I hope that they will become participants in some of these cohorts and frameworks that you all are offering to kind of help them get off the ground.
Great. Thank you, Shelly. Well, lots of great points made there around like meeting people at different points of the journey, trying to bring people along from the get-go, ensuring that you have your applicants included in the process, like that there's a part of the work plan that is thinking about the people who are applying for the jobs. It's a great transition, May, to my next question for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about how advancing skills-based practices helped meet workforce needs at the county level? Because I know that a lot of your program has been about building pathways into the county. I'm curious, you were speaking to, which you are speaking to, a group of public sector leaders. Like, what things would you call out for them that were particularly interesting?
Yeah, thank you, Henry, for that question. We started this work really with the notion of, again, pathways into the county. But what we really did was it was broader than that as we started doing this work. One, it was also a way to be part of the greater workforce ecosystem. And when I say that is Hennepin, just like many of you are employers where you're also funding workforce development in programs, in the community, right? So I am in workforce development. I'm not HR, but because of through the start, like part of the process was identifying, right, your starting point and understanding kind of the partnership that was a requirement for us is the partnership between HR and workforce development. And then how does that get messaged throughout the rest of the county, and having our board support this work was really critical. Since the launch of our Hennepin Pathways, we have trained a little over 1,000 individuals and hired close to about 500 graduates, while at the same time supporting graduates to get hired by other public and private employers of ours. And so it's been really great to be part of a broader conversation around workforce as a whole. As of October of this year, about 197 of those that been hired has been promoted to higher level positions with a 95% retention rate. And the starting average for them was $29.04 per hour. Our county minimum is 22. So these are great opportunities, not only for individuals, but for us as an employer, as a county in this space to continue to serve our residents in the most meaningful way. So for us, this work was critical. It allowed us to even learn about our departments. So we have a little bit over 50 departments here at the county, and it allowed workforce and HR to really partner in a way that we removed kind of what we would call just unnecessary noise in spaces that have always been there and never really questioned why we kept doing the things we were doing. So through this work, we've just really kind of been intentional in the process and making sure that whoever graduated and came through these programs, one, that they were also supported internally as well through hiring managers, HR, through resources, because it wasn't just about getting folks into the county, it was also about making sure they stayed. And that to us was a huge investment that we were willing to make.
You said 95% retention rate, right? Too. I mean,
Yes.
there are a lot of stats in there but 95% retention rate is pretty wild in a good way.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to emphasize the audience. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll also have a Q&A function. I have one more question for both speakers, but I wanted to emphasize that as well, because I would imagine, I mean, if I were in the audience, I would have questions. I will ask more questions if you don't ask them, so I've got plenty to go. But to both of you, and maybe we'll start with May, what excites you most about the progress you've seen in supporting the advance of skills-based practices to date? Like, what else would you like to see going forward? You've got great success, obviously, with pathways into the county, but I'm curious, what else would you like to see?
Well, first of all, I'm just excited that it's working. Like this is a strategy that works. So all the hard work, all the pushes through the challenges, it's worth the effort, right? It's worth that push. What I love for this moving forward is that becomes a norm. This is part of our daily practice, right? In county, it has been, and it is going to continue, but it's not the same with our peers, right? It shows up in many different spaces, or it gets tough and then there's a pullback. So I love for this, the conversation to continue. And I think the playbook will be instrumental in that. And that this practice becomes just a norm, and whether that's in the public sector or any other sectors, but this is the way to kind of help people move forward, and that meets them where they're at as well.
Thanks, man. Shelly?
Yeah, so I can't think of anything that I'm not excited about, for one thing. I mean, it's been just incredible to see it lifting off and taking shape at the state. Um, I think probably, I think probably the most exciting thing has been seeing our data shore up and validate that it's working. So, um, I don't know how many of you on this call have the situation that we do at the state of Colorado, but we have a lot of different sources that we need to try to pull from and piece together to come up with um, our data that represents various things that we are trying to measure. So, seeing that we had 100% of our skills-based eligible job classification postings were posted correctly in the format that we are trying to use, that we are using to try to reach stars and entice them to apply. Um, we have hit that number for 7 months running now, after rolling that out about 18 to 24 months ago. That tells me that our agencies are hearing and seeing what we need to do, and we are working the plan. We are also seeing, we have a dashboard for our stars, for how many stars are applying, how many stars are getting through the process and getting hired. We've set goals around those numbers, and having everybody engaged in what are our goals helps us achieve those goals. We have to know what we're trying to hit in order to be able to reach that, right? So it's not just making a plan and working the plan, but it's what is the goal and did we achieve the goal? So that's been very exciting, is seeing the data that wraps all of that up. It's also really exciting to see what's unfolding at our state, which is the embedding of these practices so that it is sustainable going forward. So it's not about what is the hiring trend for today, or who is the governor, or who happens to be the director of the department. It's about this is the future, and we're laying the groundwork so that it is sustainable going forward. With the playbook, we've got the framework there, so we can always keep going back as we're trying to build for going forward. I'm so excited to continue the work. I really want to put this to the next level for our state, and begin looking at retention. May those retention numbers are just incredible. I mean, I aspire to that. That's our next step.
Yeah.
In Colorado, is measuring our retention. We've just now gotten to the point where we can measure our job postings and our applicants and who's getting hired. So now we need to look at how many of them were we able to retain, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and begin those succession plans and so forth.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelly.
Uh-huh.
Well, First of all, thank you both for answering all of my questions. We have a couple questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to go through these one by one. The first one I think is for you, May. What are the community building efforts being made within the Hennepin County initiative? I know you built the pathways, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about how you've reached out to the community and engage people in the process.
Yeah, so all of our work is actually done in partnership with community-based organizations. Hennepin County does not do this work alone. We shouldn't be, we can't do it. And so we actually partner with many community-based organization providers, workforce development providers in the community to provide the specific training, the specific curriculum. We also partner a good deal with our state Minnesota colleges and universities to look at customized curriculum that works with our HR to really be intentional about training people for the positions and being a little bit more specific around some of that work. So our community-based providers are our kind of go-to partner in this space. We provide the tools and the resources. They provide, the expertise that they have, which is the community engagement component. The participants, they very much convene with our CBOs, and that's kind of where the trust is. And we are very much show up in this space as an employer in this space. So all of our work is actually done in partnership with community organizations.
Great. Yeah. Working with community-based organizations is fairly essential, I would say, to every workforce project, but it's really cool. I would say personally, it's very cool to see kind of the bridging of the workforce development, which tends to be more external facing with HR and building the pathways in. So super exciting to see that. Next question, which I think is more to both, and I think I'll try to frame it the right way, but the playbook mentions skills-based pay. Can someone talk a bit more about that? Are either panelists using it? How does it work? So my framing of that would be like, how has skills-based practices changed the way you think about compensation for your employees? And I know, May, you have a specific program for it, but I'm curious more generally to both of you. And whoever wants to jump in, go for it.
Go ahead, May. I'm going to think of this for just a sec.
Yeah.
So I will say that it has really allowed us to look at the entire spectrum of where residents, are coming in into the hiring process and into the position. So we actually expanded our work to look at internships, paid internships. We started looking at what, the varying levels of skill sets. So if someone came in and they had a particular skill set, like they might come in a little bit higher than the intern. And our county board authorized that the minimum wage is $22 an hour for any county, including interns. So at the very least, they're making $22 an hour as they come in, even as an intern. In some of our areas where it's a little bit more specialized, like our medical examiner's office, we have certain pathways there that as a student stays on longer or as someone comes in, we're able to kind of increase that experience with the, if they pursue educational, opportunities as they get into the medical examiner's office, right? So they might come in as a star, but they might, as through that, they might say, hey, leverage tuition reimbursements, leverage other types of resources the county has. And then as they gain more skills, the projects in their work also increases. We started doing a little bit of that through the medical examiner's office. And then just recently started looking at how we classified individuals, positions, if you will, in terms of where are they coming and how do we upskill? So really leaning into the additional county resources and benefits of being an employee and leveraging those tuition reimbursement, trainings, additionals. How do we continue to upskill our individuals so that they can move up? So I talked a little bit about the promotion piece. Yeah. That's really through individuals coming in as a star and then gaining other training and able to secure other educational opportunities and is able to kind of move along that spectrum. So it's really exciting to kind of see it organically kind of grow in that way and leveraging what existing resources the county has to offer our employees.
Shelly, do you have anything you want to add on
that? Yeah, just kind of mirroring what May is saying. We work with our workforce centers quite a bit, and in partnering with them, we in fact, recently have our Department of Human Services that hires healthcare services trainees. They can come in with nothing but a high school education. They can get trained, for example, for a QMAP certification through the Workforce Center. So that's paid for them to be able to do that. And then once they've got that certification, they will get a pay increase. And so on. Other licenses and certifications as well result in pay increases, and not just at the Department of Human Services, but also in transportation, safety. Virtually every department has milestones that you can hit. If you don't have certain skills, licenses, certifications, if you are either training yourself, tuition reimbursement, if you are going through some professional development courses, those are all things that can enhance your pay level. So not just coming in, but as you achieve those things, there are pathways, yeah, in some areas where it's very clear and very well mapped out. Others, it may be a bit more ambiguous, but the opportunity is there. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the responses to both of these. I'm going to go one more question and then we'll kind of go to wrapping, but it feels very relevant to the time that we are in. It's from April Hendrickson. With moving to skills-based hiring, you're more reliant on skills-based questions to assess that. We're required to send questions ahead of the interview and have found that people are often using AI to respond to those questions. Same with skills-based questions or quizzes that we send applicants. Do you have tips for how to truly assess if an applicant has the needed skills with the advent of AI? It's probably a challenge that most hiring managers are facing right now. I'll offer my 2 cents really quickly because I think that this is something that I brought up in the course of advancing skills-based practices. I would say that in most cases, hopefully you're interviewing an applicant before hiring them. Obviously, the AI advent adds a complexity to it because from my knowledge, I think some places have like scanners that can somehow detect if it's AI or not, but there's a lot of different kinds of AI and a lot of different ways people can do it. But I'm curious how that shows up in your governments.
So this is just a huge topic everywhere right now in terms of candidates, applicants using AI. I think it's a reality that will continue. They're going to do it. What we tend to, so it's important to remember that if they can't do it on their own, that's going to come out at some point, right? So they may get through minimum quals, they may get through your testing assessments that you do prior to actually interviewing them. Yes, you were saying that you send out your questions ahead of time before the interview. We do that a lot at the state as well, so people know, kind of what to expect. I would say ask them to be prepared for some work-related problem to solve, to talk through with the panel while they are live. For example, if it is a customer service agent that is going to be working in a call center, you might let them know that you're going to give them like live call in, and they're going to work through that with you during the interview. Just as they would not know what is coming at them in a call center on the floor, you can let them know that they're going to be doing this during the interview, but maybe not give them the exact nature of what that call is going to entail and what type of problem they might need to solve. I really like I guess you would say submit, a work sample or a piece of writing, but that can also be supplemented with AI if they are doing it offline, or if they're not doing it right there with you live. So to whatever extent you can have them do something live, gosh, I mean, we used to do that for presenting a, a difficult sales process, solving a customer service problem, maybe analyzing a spreadsheet with you while they are, on an interview. Those live situations, it would be really awful if somebody got through your whole process with AI and then they just can't do it when they get to the interview, but better to know at that point than prior. And we are required at the state to review all applications with a human being, not with any kind of assisted technique. So a lot of our recruiters are learning to spot this before people get that far. And I'm sure that all of us will be learning to do that more as time goes on. But then AI and people will get better at using it too. So
thanks, Shelly. Any quick thoughts on that, May? And then we have a few kind of wrapping activities we'll do with the audience.
I would say a couple of years ago, and even earlier in our process, we started implementing behavior-based questions versus really specific skills, right? We were looking at behavior type of questions. We have a department called Workplace Inclusion that sits in every single interview with us, and they help us form the questions in a way that really kind of gets to the core of the person versus like the assignments or the skill set per se. We already know that they already have some sort of skills. We're trying to assess fit, right? Assess a person's ability to pivot or to respond, especially when we're dealing with community. So we started doing that. And then, I think it's a little bit of going back to the basics when it comes to AI, in-person interviews, right, versus virtual. We do send questions out ahead of time too, but these are also sample questions. We also, can ask some version of it. It could be the same question, but it might, be a little bit different, or we ask them to elaborate further when they use specific examples. And so it's really around kind of implementing or utilizing questions that allows us to get to the core of who the person is, that helps us with a lot of the soft skills, right? Because the technical stuff we can train, they can learn. We know that. It's the soft skills, it's the people skills that we're trying to assess too.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, May and Shelly. I can't express enough how much we appreciate your participation. I know it's been valuable for the public sector audience, because this was in the weeds, and this is kind of what people have been telling us for a long time. It's like, we want to go beyond the surface level stuff and get into like what it actually looks like on the ground. So really appreciate you both participating, and I'll see you both soon.
Thank you for inviting us. Appreciate it.
yes, thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay. All right, Beth, I'm going to go quick through the application of the playbook here. And then I know we'd love for folks to take a brief quiz at the end here. Okay, so we talked a lot about the cohort. We've talked a lot about communities of practice as ways to engage. I'd really encourage folks to take the archetype quiz that's at the beginning of the playbook. I know Shelly mentioned that during her portion, that was really valuable about understanding kind of like who you are in this process. And you may oscillate between different parts of that as you go through it. we've seen states learn from each other, as Shelly mentioned, through the cohort and borrow competency banks from one system and apply it in another one. So there's a lot of learning out there. I think my takeaway from this webinar has been this is kind of the community we've been hoping would build, and it's been really great to see. And so really grateful to Shelly and May for offering their expertise. I think we will move to the opportunity to download the playbook quickly here while we've got a few minutes left. And then we'll also have our final quiz as well. But really appreciate May and Shelly. And if you have questions, reach out. Also, shameless plug, sign up for the hub if you're not already signed up. I think probably a good portion of you are, but if you have not yet signed up, really encourage you to sign up, because this is how you're going to get access to these resources as they continue to be developed. So thank you so much. Awesome. There's the community practice. Erica, if you want to give a little overview of this, that would be awesome. Or I can too. Okay, I'll jump in. So for the community practice, we're launching this in 2026. We've mentioned the cohort is a great opportunity for deeper engagement with members of the hub. Data community practice is a great opportunity if you're an individual in a state and you do a lot of work with data. We encourage you to sign up and express your interest, because this is going to be an opportunity to work with other data individuals. So as Shelly and May were mentioning, like there's a lot of learnings that happen sometimes from opportunity work materials, but a lot of times from other professionals in the public sector. And so really encourage you to sign up for this. This will be our first community of practice as a part of the STARS Public Sector Hub. We'll have more coming next year for deeper ways of engagement, but this is a great opportunity for individuals who work in the data field and do a lot of time doing data analysis related to workforce development work. I think that's it for me. Beth, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Henry, and thank you everyone for your engagement and interest. Thank you for the questions that you submitted earlier. You should see a post-event survey popping up on your screen. We are keenly interested in your feedback on today's session, as well as any input, thoughts, guidance that you have for the hub. I also just wanted to reiterate Henry's thanks for Shelly and May. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for sharing your experience with skills-based hiring. Thank you for your support of STARS. Also, thank you to Erica for providing such a detailed look at the playbook as we were going through the webinar and the information earlier in our time today. Hopefully, folks have had a chance to get a good amount of the way through the post-event survey. Again, we very, very much so appreciate your thoughts and feedback. Just wanted to let you know what's coming next. So in follow-up to our session today, we will send you a link where you can download the playbook, take the archetype quiz, and then we'll also be sending you a recording of our session today. So just wanted to say thank you again for everyone for your engagement and participation over the course of our session today. We really appreciate everyone's support of the STARS Public Sector Hub.